Welcome, friends, to this 18th day of our workshop on Satyarth Prakash. Today, we will be deliberating upon the 13th chapter, uh, dealing with the Christianity, doctrines of Christianity. And our first speaker, Brahmachari Arun Kumar, he is not available to speak today. So, the second speaker, Pandita Indrani Ram Prasad, basically from Trinidad, but she is now living in US. She will be speaking, and I would like to invite Ashwini Rajpal, Director International Foundation for Vedic Science Canada, to introduce our learned speaker and invite her for talk.
Namaste to our learned scholars and esteemed audience. I am honored and privileged to introduce Pandita Dr. Indrani Ramprasad, whom I've known since 1996 when we attended the first WAVES conference in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Indrani was born in Trinidad, West Indies. She is a fourth generation descendant of Indian ancestors. She is Trinidad and Tobago's first female Hindu priest, trained in the Arya Samaj tradition. In 2003, she was awarded the gold medal from the government of Trinidad and Tobago for her activism in women's development. She has worked in education and journalism and continues to publish her writings on Dharma in journals and encyclopedia. Vani Prakashan recently published her book, Ram Leela in North India and in Mauritius. Pandita Indrani is currently a fellow of the Hindu University of America. Got her BA honors degree, first class, from Benares Hindu University, and her master's and PhD in communication and journalism from the University of Pune, India. I now hand you over to Dr. Indrani Ramprasad.
Namaste all. I want to say, first of all, we could not have had a better person to introduce me. Thank you very much, Ashwini ji. We go back a long time. And I want to compliment Professor Ravi Prakash Arya for this wonderful program. Only this week, I was lamenting, let me just take out this call. Only this week, I was lamenting the lack of community in COVID-19 times, the lack of community, family even. Very few people, we are also isolated now. We are locked down in our homes. And then you realize who is really calling you? Who is really in touch? How are you? Do you need something? You're an elderly person. Can I do something for you? And we are seeing the failings, at least I speak for Trinidad and Tobago. We are seeing the weaknesses in our, the Sabha. So this is a wonderful opportunity for us to feel with the heart across the world as a Samaj, as a family, that we can talk to each other. Maybe you can't send me a package of food in COVID-19 times, but we can share words of inspiration. There is so much that we can do. And Professor Arya, I thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. My presentation is going to be a little different because I think we all know the text. We all know so much about what has been written on Christianity and Islam in particular. I'm going to take a different angle, a post-colonial angle. So my presentation looks at European ideas via Christianity in India. And I commend the Purva Paksha done by Maharishi Dayananda Saraswati in the Abrahamic religions, which was never before undertaken as far as I know. I mean, the others, within the tradition, we have had the others doing the Purva Paksha of Buddhism and the different traditions within. But never before was it done with the Abrahamic traditions. I stand to be corrected. So chapters 13 and 14 are revolutionary in that regard. And I always wondered, why is it we have not been flooding our communities with little newsletters of this information? This information is the answer back to the Christian conversionists that are in our midst. How do you answer them back? And it's all there. It's all the seed is all there. Now, Indians have had a strong tradition in refuting truth claims of different sampradayas. So it's not unusual to hear, as I said, about Buddhism and so on. But I want to reiterate again, never before have I seen it in Christianity and Islam. Maharishi had such foresight, such foresight. And what brilliant mind to be able to put that together. In what times? It was the times of the colonial power, colonial rule. So the British were ruling, and they were ruling with Christianity. The Christian missionaries and foreign governments and invaders had studied the residents of Bharat Varsh in detail. They knew us better than we know ourselves. Their converts, especially in places like Bengal. Remember Bengal, Calcutta? Bengal was then the seat of government. So the converts in those places helped the Christian missionaries to understand the different worldviews of the people in India. Who we were, what were our beliefs. It was our own Indians who converted and helped them to understand that. And I will be pointing you to one of those characters. In chapter 13, Maharishi addresses the Abrahamic view of creation and demolishes it. Today, we need to build on what Maharishi has given, and we need to use the modern scientific advances like in quantum theory and reality, and repackage this answer back. Because the quantum theory and reality, it aligns with our ancient Vedic wisdom. We need our scholars to say this now to the world. Say to us, we need really to repackage. Maharishi did his job of packaging at that time. We need to repackage. And as I say repackaging, I always lament Arya Samaj has such a wonderful base of knowledge. But, because I come from communication, I lament that we do not package it nicely for the young people. You look at the Quran and the Bible and so on, how nicely written and published they are. They look very pretty. We need to get to that stage. The young people, think of young people, not us all geriatrics. All around you look at Arisabad, we have so many geriatrics sitting here, including me. Let's look at the young people. What's going to be attractive to them? So Maharishi has given rich references from various books in the Bible in chapter 13. Wonderful references. that asks the inquiring mind. He's telling the inquiring mind, ask the questions about what this is saying about the truth of Satchitananda, of the highest reality. How this is align. How does the Christian view of creation align with what we are saying about the highest reality? And now you got quantum theory on your side, on our side. Religions, he said, hardly quarrel over axiomatic truths, but they do over truth claims or faith-based claims. When a truth is a truth, you throw up something and it must fall down. We don't quarrel about that. But when we hold a faith-based reality that yes, the world was created in so many days and then God had to rest. So those claims are arguable, and that's where we differ. India has faced several foreign invasions that conquered its land space and its culture. Now I depart from the very Indian view, Mera Bharat Mahan Hai. Mera Bharat Mahan Hai. It's a kind of view that says, never mind, we are great. Bharat is great. And so we are not motivated to get up and act, get up and act. And not just, oh, we will always exist. Oh, Sanatan Dharma, Satya Sanatan Vedic Dharma will always exist. The principles will always exist. But if human beings who embody those principles are not there, it will not exist. Gravity will always exist. The truths of our wisdom will always exist. But if we are not there to communicate them, you can't say. We are supposed to be the living examples of Sanatan Dharma. So I find we need to be a little more Rajasic, both Sattvic and Rajasic. We need more Rajasic kind of energy to get our work done. Maharishi is the ideal of that. How much he walked the whole of India. Now you can fly a plane and get from place to place. Look at the sacrifices he did. The invaders from Alexander and the Greeks, the Arab invasions, the Turkish invasions, the Mamluk or the slave dynasty, the Khiljis, the Tughlaqs. And I remember that name Tughlaq when I am in Delhi and I see Tughlaq Road or something. Delhi has the most tangible heritage of invaders. We celebrate the invaders in Delhi, the city of Delhi, more than any other part of the world. The Sayyid and Lodi dynasties, invaders in India. You hear about Lodi Gardens? The Bahamanis, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. The Mughals, the Portuguese, the British East India Company. And that is the one that affected us right now, in terms of the new colonialism. You had the colonialism way back from when the Muslims came, but I'm talking here of the British East India Company and what they have done to us. In India and Europe of the 18th and 19th century, there was the rise of Indology. You hear Indologists, you hear Indology, the study of Indian languages and religions. And we feel good. We say, oh my God, look at those white people studying us. They think we are so great. And we feel, these white people are great. And that our religion must be great. Our dharma must be great. The Englishman William Jones, who lived between 1746 to 1794, is credited with starting the study called Indology when he founded the Asiatic Society of Bengal in 1784. Look at where it began. The study of India, its languages and cultures, that study would be used to come back now and degrade Sanatan Dharma. Now, this gentleman was a philologist, an Indologist, who spoke of Indo-European connections and a puny judge on the Supreme Court at Fort William in Bengal. And he was a scholar of ancient India. And I particularly find it, we must commend these folks for the way they went about documenting what they saw. You know, I always tell people, if you didn't write about it, if you didn't document it, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. 100 years from now, you talk about, oh, Hindus are being massacred here and here. It didn't happen if you didn't write about it. And these guys did, they spent their whole lives writing and studying. And he even coined that word Indo-European. He detected a relationship between Sanskrit and European languages. He was a linguist, as I said, and an employee of the British East India Company. His function at that company was to interpret Indian law, religion, and culture for the employer. I ask you, at least in the Caribbean, in the indentured Indian diaspora, who follows Manu? Do we live by Manu's laws today? And what these guys were doing was looking for laws to describe the Hindus for the British, because the British had the laws by the Bible, and this one had it by the Quran and so on. So they wanted to find what laws we were living by. And so they picked up the Manusmriti. You know, I have to do a survey of us all and ask, in your personal life, does Manusmriti affect you? Maybe earlier it did, and there are some good things from it now, and I commend the Arya Samaj for having published that the Manusmriti according to the Arya Samaj without the additions, you know, the additions of the done, and that's useful. It's useful for us to learn as rules for conduct. Now, many Indologists like H.H. Wilson and Friedrich Max Muller were patronized by governments to do their research. So, you know, I want to do research. Dr. Prakash wants to do research. Who funds us? Who pays so that your bills at home are looked after? Your family is looked after. These British people did it for their people. The invaders did it for their people. Yeah, in the Mughal courts, they were paid to do these things. Who is paying us? We need to be sensible and logical today. You have scholars, support your scholars who are doing this work. You have activists, support them. But there was already an interest in Sanskrit from the Germans, and the Germans did us great damage. Great damage. From the German missionary Heinrich Roth, 1620 to 1668. He came to India as a scholar of Sanskrit. He became a scholar of Sanskrit in India. He came as a missionary. And they all realized that the ancient wisdom was in the Sanskrit, in the language. It was in the language. Every Indian, every Hindu should learn some basic Sanskrit as a signal of pride in your identity, if not to read the scriptures even. Let the scholars read that for us, because we can't interpret in detail, but you must have a basic little certificate course in Sanskrit. This is my identity. And I always say, India has cheated me. Banaras Hindu University cheated me. When I went to India as a 19-year-old, looking for Dharma, looking to learn. And that time, that university had the best name. I never learned anything on Sanatan Dharma there. Nothing. And they didn't force me to learn Sanskrit. But if you go to Germany today, before you get into a university, you must know Sanskrit and you must know German. They won't allow you into the university without a proficiency in German. Look at this knowledge of India. Everybody coming to study there should learn Sanskrit and any other Indian language they want. That you should be fighting for. So in the 19th century, German universities started focusing on translating ancient Indian texts. Why? They translated texts like Veda, Gita, and Mahabharata. You see, at that time, Germany was a conglomeration of different states. It wasn't a nation yet. They were looking to become a nation, and they wanted a narrative. Where did they come from? And they posited an Aryan homeland. They said, yes, the Aryans, we are the original Aryans in this homeland somewhere in Europe. And the Aryans went down to India, and India still has remnants of the Aryan wisdom. So let's take their ancient scriptures and see if we can get that Aryan wisdom. And so they created great damage when they came with the Aryan versus Hindu thing, and they made the Aryan-Dravidian divide. Started then up to now in the logical circles. And we in India, Hindus, Vedic, Aryan, whatever you call yourself, we are the keepers and the transmitters of this ancient Vedic wisdom. What are we doing? What are the universities doing? We are ashamed. Hello. In India, you can't call yourself a Hindu very freely. I can do that in Trinidad. I can do that in the Caribbean and in other parts of the world. In India, you still feel afraid to say Hindu. And I don't want anybody telling me that. That's direct experience. You know, when I would say Hindu, they would immediately put me as, oh, you're one of those traditionalists. You know, it was a divide that the European also gave. Traditionalist versus progressive. Anytime you hear that word progressive, be aware. Traditionalist versus progressive. Now, the German Indologist Max Muller made the most lasting impression on the Indian mind. India worships Max Muller. India has cultural institutes. You know, the Mahatma Gandhi Institute for Cultural Cooperation in many parts of the world. It's named after Mahatma Gandhi. Well, Germany has similar cultural institutes in different parts of the world. And it's only in India and in Pakistan that they have it named after somebody. And India named it after Max Muller. And in Pakistan, I forget the name, but it was a woman who studied, it would have been Islam. And so it's named after her. And look at my people in India. We uphold Max Muller. You know, Max Muller, when he was applying for the Bowden Chair of Professorship in England, he told them, he said, see, my translations that I did of Veda and other things, the works, the publications that I did, not translated, the publications that I did, that should tell you, it is giving you, the Christian missionary, the firepower and the understanding with which to demolish the Hindus. And that ancient Vedic wisdom, my friends, this is Max Muller. Right? And so we felt that this white man, first a German, but he lived most of his life in England, where he got a chair. Universities give chairs to their missionaries to do their work. Yeah? What are we doing? I go to Banaras Hindu University, I am faced with Marxists sitting in all the chairs and couldn't learn anything about my ancient wisdom. I cry every day as I get older and older and say to India, what did you do to me? I came to you as a 19-year-old to one of the most, Banaras Hindu University. Max Muller, as I said, but you know the great thing? Max Muller never visited India. Never visited India. And he wrote sitting in England. right? They wrote, and this is what the first Indologists did. They were actually sitting in India, and the reports that the British administrators were sending, they were using those reports to build stories about India and about the beliefs of the Indian people and their customs. And Max Muller was a hero for many in the newly independent Indian elite who were fighting for independence. He was a hero, but the Arya Samajists who were in that movement were staunch Vedic, who held to the Aryan identity, not of an Aryan coming outside, coming from Europe to India, but of an Aryan indigenous to India, Bharatvarsh. The Aryan, that is what Maharishi did. It was not, Maharishi, did such wonderful work. He could see, the Rishi, I can't even say man. The word man doesn't apply to him. Rishi, that could see so far. And even persons like Jawaharlal Nehru would disavow the ancient civilization of India. Nehru disavowed. He says it is too traditional and backward. He said you got to give up the traditional. Remember, the traditional progressive debate was won in Europe. And when these white people came to India, they brought the same discussion. And these Indians in Bengal, then Bengal, all went for that ideology. The French ideology of equality, fraternity, and so on. Because that's what was happening in Europe at the time. Thomas Macaulay, as you all know, successfully converted generations of Indians who were brown in color, but British in worldview. Only their color was brown, but they thought their worldview was British. Worldview meaning, how did you see your relationship between you, Atman, Paramatman, and Prakriti? How did we relate to this? And that worldview was changed through the education system. I want to go here to a young guy that I had studied. So Macaulay, we all know, a young guy called, he was Krishna Mohan Banerjee, 1813 to 1885 in Bengal. He was an upper caste Kulin Brahmin, the prototype of the elite upper class educated in colonial Calcutta. At that time, we think Calcutta was really the intellectual capital. You think because it was the seat of government. He was educated at a Hindu college. Listen to me. At a Hindu college, just as I went to Banaras Hindu University, but I didn't go the way he did. He was at a Hindu college and was converted to Anglicanism. He became an Anglican in 1832 when he was just 19 years old. Because the missionaries were there working on him. He was the first Bengali priest of the Christ Church, where he preached in Bengali, right? So yes, we love our Sanskrit. We must continue praying in that, but communication, you have to communicate in the language of the people. And we in the diaspora outside of India, the English is the language of the oppressor, that's right. But it's also it is also the motherland, the language that we know, the only language that we know. So you've got to speak to us in English. So when we pray, keep the Sanskrit, but we also must use English to communicate. Friends, the other day I was in a rural area in Trinidad, and I could hear the old songs of Indian movies blasting on the radio. Nobody understands what the song means. But we have a deep connection. It is Indian. It is my heritage. I can only feel, but I don't understand. And that's happening with our prayer, the pratna. And if in your prayer you can't understand what you're saying, tell me, sisters and brothers, how are you going to communicate the worldview? How are you going to communicate this high knowledge? Notice I said, don't give up the Sanskrit. We're praying in the Sanskrit, but start to explain more in the English. And every Hindu must know a basic certificate course in Sanskrit. And this guy, Banerjee, converted his wife and his future son-in-law, a Tagore. You know, the great intellectual Tagore also didn't fight for Hinduism and Vedic Dharma. He was the first president of the Bengal Christian Association. Look at what these converts did. You know, they say when you're converted, you become more committed to wanting to go out and convert the whole world. So we need more people like that in our circle. Now, he came in a time when the spirit was one of protest and revolt against social ills. At that time, they, just like the British were saying, you know, they were against sati and widow, you know, the way widows were treated and so on. So a lot of the young Hindus were also asking questions. And so this guy, instead of finding the answers in the Vedic ancient wisdom, they got taken away with the Christian telling them, hey, come this way, we are equal, and you know, this is the path. And they were guided by France, Britain, and Italy. These three countries influenced. When I tell you Italy, you remember our freedom fighters who were influenced all there? 23rd August 1831 is a day that rocked Calcutta, conservative Calcutta. On this day, some men of that Bengal group, the young revolutionaries who wanted to change the world, I was one of that in my own time. We all, when we were youths, wanted to change the whole world. That is the spirit of youth. We have to know how to harness it and work with Sanatana Dharma. And what he did, these members of this group, they gathered at the residence of Krishna Mohan Banerjee. This is the reverend I told you. And the reports say he was not there, but I don't know. And they went to his home and they ate bread made by Muslim bakers, and they ate beef. In those days was a big thing, you know, not to eat food cooked by somebody else, and certainly still is not at all acceptable to have beef. And when they did it, you know, they celebrated what they did. They threw the bones over into the neighbor's house. The neighbor was a Brahmin. And that really shocked Bengal, when I say Bengal of the time. And Banerjee's grandfather threw him out of the house. Threw him out of the house. And Banerjee went on to become a Christian. And but he wasn't an ordinary person. He was very educated. We need to get our scholars and our educated people on board. This man was very educated. He could stand on his own. And he says, you cannot study European history without accepting Christianity. Anytime you study European history, you are de facto accepting Christianity. Because the Christians see history as unfolding the Bible. Recently, those of you who are in the know-how, when then President Trump moved the capital, moved his embassy, the US embassy in Israel, when he moved it to Jerusalem, what he was doing, that was part of biblical history. They were unfolded, the Bible according to them, that this will be unfolded this way. And they see history like that. And this gentleman, and the second coming of Christ, that was all they say, prophesied. In his earlier writings, you know what this learned Brahmin Banerjee did? His earlier writings as a Christian missionary, this is what he did. He sought to expose the errors and weaknesses of Hindu philosophy and doctrine and compare them now with Christian claims. Our Maharishi did that in the other direction, showing us the weaknesses in Christianity. And Banerjee said, he refuted the arguments that Ved had divine authority. He said Ved has no divine authority. And he argued that the fundamental principles of Hindu philosophy was the same as Buddhism. He says they're atheistic and they're like Buddhists. In his later writings, he tried to link, he wrote, Aryan witness to Christ, Aryan witness to Christ. And he tried to link Hinduism with Christianity. Dr. Prakashji, just give me a little note when you want me to stop for 2 minutes and I wrap up.
No problem, no problem.
Yeah. So he clearly stated that Hinduism was the religion of the Vedas, and it later on he changed his mind and he said, Hinduism, it is a religion of the Vedas and it is theistic. They believe in a God. Before he said no, they didn't believe in any principle, that we could say God. Now keep in mind, when we say Satchidanand, these guys saying God, concept of some personhood, And he uses the concept of sacrifice in Veda, of yajna, the concept of yajna, and he says the Bible fulfills the yajna of the Veda. He said Veda, yes. You remember now he's trying to show Veda is good. Yeah, it's good, but only up to a point. It's not going to give you the fulfillment to reach God. Satchitananda. I don't like to use that word God. We Aryans must stop using the word God. Paramatman, Satchitananda, and so on. So he tried to say that Veda is up to a point, accepted, but to reach the full thing, you have to come to Christianity. Christ will fulfill it. And his is called the fulfillment theory. He advanced that in Christianity, the fulfillment theory. And he made two propositions. He said there was a fundamental similarity in the Christian doctrine of salvation of the world, to save the world, right? He said there's a similarity with saving the world and the primitive Hindu view of destruction of sin, pap, how to destroy or how to get rid of pap, and the role of yajna in redeeming the papi, the process of yajna, where Prajapati, the Lord and Savior of creation, sacrificed himself as Lord and Savior. So he said Prajapati, if you go back, remember our theory of creation and the whole Prajapati creation theory, and he talks about just the way Prajapati created through the yajna, offering this in the winter and the summer and so on. He says the same thing is in Christianity. The same saving you and the world is in Christianity. He says Prajapati is the first Purusha as Vishwakarma. And this coincides with the meaning of the name and offices of the historical reality, Jesus Christ. He says Jesus Christ was a man who lived historically, is real. And he said this meaning it coincides with him. And that no other person than Jesus of Nazareth has ever appeared in the world claiming to be that self-sacrificing Prajapati, right? So just because they say Jesus Christ sacrificed on the cross, they said, Prajapati, this guy is saying Prajapati sacrifice. See, nobody has come in history to say he will sacrifice except this now, Jesus Christ. So he's continuing the Vedic thing. So you can't get fulfillment in the Veda and that tradition. You have to come here to the continuity in history through Jesus Christ. And he says a true Hindu is a true Christian. And I quote, you can scarcely hold the one without being led to the other. Much less can you hold the one while resisting the claims of the other. So he's talking to Hindu youths at the university there in Calcutta, and he's saying, you know, you can scarcely, a true Hindu is a true Christian. So by that, I imagine he's saying he still remained a true Hindu. And he appealed to his Hindu friends. This is his argument, and I quote, "Do not think what I have said is my voice only. It is the voice of your primitive ancestors, calling upon you in the words of their Vedas. If it were possible for those hoary rishis to reappear in the world, they themselves would exhort you, nay, beseech you, implore you, perhaps also constrain you not to neglect so great a salvation, not to waver in your duty to acknowledge and embrace the true Prajapati. The appeal I am pressing is an appeal from those in whose history, in whose traditions, in whose language you take such just pride. Embracing Christ, you will find in him a strength and comfort which your ancient rishis would have regarded as a most valuable treasure had they lived in these days. You will find in him everything worthy of your lineage, worthy of your antiquity, worthy of your tradition, and at the same time, just to your children and to your successors in life." Look how we turned the whole argument around. And innocent Hindus listening to a dynamic speaker is likely to go that way if we are not speaking to them in our language and in the language that they understand. Now, the pursuit of knowledge in India has been demonized with colonialism. The pursuit of our ancient knowledge has been demonized when they demonized the Brahmin. The demonization of the Brahmin was meant to cut off the Hindu head. Yeah, we know the Varna description given, the head, intellectual, the Kshatriya, the arms, the Vaishyas, the generator and distributor of wealth, and the Shudras, you know, the service-oriented people. When you cut off the head, the knowledge, what kind of Hindu body is that? You're floundering like a chicken without a head. And I imagine that's where collectively we may say many of us are, as a Hindu body, Vedic body. You cut off the head, and caste is used to consistently beat up on Hindus in India and the rest of the world. Now, I know we are also against caste by hereditary. We are not by birth, but we understand the kula and the jati and the varna. It's not a flat world. You have 5 children and each one of them different because they come with different varna. They're different. And caste is being revived around the world now to beat up on Hindus, to make our children feel ashamed. And we are fighting this around the world. I'm sorry, you know, I implore my Vedic, my Arya Samajis sisters and brothers to think anew this battle of caste and anew the battle of the Brahmin and understand what behind that was happening. You know, recently I'm sorry if you missed that wonderful webinar yesterday that was done by a gentleman from UK with the Global Hindu Heritage Foundation. And I want you all to work with him. He was so beautiful when he says we have to remove caste from India. We have to remove caste from India, but not our jati, not our kul. We know that. Not our varna. Remove caste and remove all those reservations that go with caste. Dr. Arya ji, kya ho jayega Bharat ki andar mein? What will then happen to all these people who are getting caste certificates to get privileged jobs. Remove caste. And it is a European construct. Caste, the very word, European, Portuguese. Caste was, and this gentleman showed exactly when caste started in India, when the word started to be used. And it is a European construct that Hindus need to study in detail. We need to compare what is caste versus what is Varna, Jati, Kula. Right? And this is what Pavan Verma says in Being Indian. Most of you in India would know Pavan Verma. I'm just recently studying his text at the Hindu University of America in post-colonial studies. He was a very famous ambassador. He went all over the world as ambassador of India, and he's a politician. And I enjoy reading his text. I don't agree with most of what he said, but I quote for you. He says, I quote, "It may seem paradoxical for a country with the largest number of illiterates in the world, but education has always been important to the Indian elite, and in particular to the Brahmins, as a means of perpetuating their supremacy." End of quote. Look at what Indians in India are saying about Brahmins studying. The ancient thing is that is what the Brahmin is supposed to do. And he's supposed to have been humble and so on, but things, a lot of things are changing. But here you're saying the Brahmin studied in order to assert his supremacy. I mean, if we didn't have people like Dr. Prakash and also many others who are Brahmins studying at the university, protecting the knowledge and passing it on, what would happen to your Hindu body? You will have no head. And this is what Jawaharlal Nehru says. I quote, "India must break with much of her past and not allow it to dominate the present. Our lives are encumbered with the dead wood of this past. All that is dead and has served its purpose has to go. We have to get out of the traditional way of thought and living, which for all the good they may have done in the past age, have ceased to have significance today." End of quote. So he's saying, he is again perpetuating that European trope, tradition versus progressive. Yes, we want to be ahead. I'm not saying no, but progressive is a Marxist, leftist ideology, right? And understand what that means when you say progressive. And understand what they mean when they say traditional. It means we are caste bound and we are, stuck to rituals we don't understand and so on. Now, we have always had change in our history. We have given up some things and we have taken some things, but it's not violent. When you do epistemic violence, sisters and brothers, when you uproot the tree from the head of the fellow who in Hindu, you're trying to change them, right? But when you uproot the tree without putting back a beautiful root to grow, what are you doing? I remember once in New York, a Hindu from Guyana said to me, we were all working as Hindus. And when he learned I was an Arya Samajist priest, he said to me, "What? Arya Samaj?" He said, "You guys have come into the Hindu world to uproot the weeds, but you ended up uprooting the flowers as well." That was very instructive. It means we cause pain. We cause some pain to many people. You can bring about change, you can bring about new knowledge without bringing hurt and pain and taking someone from point A to point B. Not point A to point Z. Bam, that's violent. And that's why some people get so frustrated, they go away. So we have to make people understand why rituals were once important, why you're doing this, and how you may always keep the unmanifested Brahman in focus. I never demolish other people's beliefs, you know. I say, take this, come along with me, keep in mind the unmanifested. I ask you to think of this. Don't bring violence in the thing. So the English education that we all rush to, look at the vision of Maharishi, the DAV educational system. My goodness. Look at that Rishi who saw ahead. Yes, we must use the English medium because that was what is controlling at the time in the politics and the society. Vedic, but keep the Vedic root. Keep both. We should have had both. But unfortunately, I tell you, in the Caribbean, in Trinidad, we have Vedic schools. We do try to teach the religion, the dharma. I don't like the word religion either. We try to teach dharma, but you go by the national syllabus, you have very little time. You know, we are under constraints. But look at this young Dayanand, who could have made the call for Swarajya. I'm told he was the first to make that call. Yeah? And I'm told he was the first to make the call for Hindi, being a national language of integration, even though he loved Sanskrit. But he saw the wisdom. Learn Hindi so that we can all be integrated and together and have an identity, a unity. So don't beat up on fellow Hindus who are different, who speak a different language, who may worship different. Work with them together. We show them Sagun Brahman, Nirgun Brahman. We got to find new ways. The term Arya was popularized by Maharishi. I mean, before the Germans were even saying Arya, Arya Putra was mentioned, Sri Ram, Arya Putra, before they could even speak of that. Maharishi speaks of, you know, our whole Aryavarta. Okay, so I'm going to end now here. I think, Raviji, I thought I would not have been sufficiently prepared. So I want to end here now with saying, Maharishi Dayananda Saraswati was indeed a visionary with his feet on the ground. And he was a brilliant strategist. That word, keep that word in mind, strategist. We need to continue that tradition of change and adaptation, repackaging the ancient wisdom to suit the times, and to infuse Vedic Sanatan Dharma, that worldview, in every Arya Samaj home, in our communities, the nation, and the global village. My friends, can we ask the average Vedic home, what do you believe in? What is your relationship with Paramatman? Why do you want to go there? How do you get there? What in your home reflects this environment? What in your home? The music you are listening to, the foods you are eating. What is this reflecting? This vision that you are seeking? Put the vision and work backwards. Put that vision, that moksha, where are we going? So this calls for a strategic plan arrived at by scholars and practitioners working together. There will always be those who will focus on the textual tradition. Arya Samaj, Gurukuls, yes, we have great scholars. You guys understand the scriptures really well, right? But not everybody has to be there. Yeah? We need scholars. Not everybody has to be there. Arya Samaj Gurukuls, we have produced brilliant scholars in this regard. For strengthening and disseminating Vedic Satya Sanatana Dharma, we need a plan, arrived at by experts in areas like planning, policy making, communication, and what I will call applied Dharma, where scholars of Shruti and Smriti will now interpret that high knowledge and bring it down to the masses to tell us how to live. Guidelines for living Apad Dharma, in this time and age, go back to the Veda and Shastras. You who's studying in the university, tell us that. We, the Pracharaks, will go out in the world and do it. We need Ved Pracharaks, Bhaiya. Ved Pracharaks, not Pandit and big names and scholars. The Pracharak who will have a basic knowledge for guidelines for living, and send him out like a one-man missionary who's going out there. Send him to Guyana, Trinidad, Suriname, different parts of India, where he will work in that area as one man. He don't need to read all the Vedas and all the Shastras. Ravi Prakash Arya would have done that from the university and given us the kind of knowledge to go out. And when I say Ravi Prakash Arya, I mean symbol of the scholars. And to end, I want to give this task to be headed by the visionary Dr. Ravi Prakash Arya. I have seen him on the field for ages in New York. We have been together for many, many conferences and for many years. So I want this task to be headed by this visionary, along with serious scholars. And as I said, these other people and strategists, not only feeling from the heart. We want to fight and we don't know how to fight. You must have sense. When you go into war, you must know the enemy better than you know yourself. We have to be strategic. It would be most appropriate for the universities to aggressively do post-colonial studies in India's ancient Vedic wisdom. I want you, India is not doing that. You need to be studying what the colonial people did. And you go back to all the invaders. Go back to all the invaders. They were all colonizers. What they have done to our Vedic wisdom and how we can recoup, how we can get it back, regain our identity and our self-esteem. And I want to ask Dr. Arya, can we begin by getting a few PhD scholars to take up this study? Will we begin? I commit to assist. Because as a fellow at Hindu University of America, that's now my specialty, post-colonial studies. And we can get people to train. We need Indians. When I say Indians, a lot from India and their universities and the diaspora, the brilliant minds in the diaspora. We need us all to take up studies in this post-colonial thing and study. There's a course coming up at the Hindu University where they have a topic on Maharishi Dayananda Saraswati. And I quickly went and registered for that course because, you know, a lot of the colonials, they attack Maharishi. Post-colonial, they attack Maharishi. And I'm there to try to say, hello, it's not like that. You have to look at it this way. So we need to do that. So Dr. G, please, let's get some PhD scholars and study how did the changes in Europe change us in India? Why did we change? Why we wanted to be like them and think like them? And what were the Indian ideas that Europe took back to Britain and Germany and so on? You might be shocked to know that ideas went to America with these, some of the great scholars there took back ideas. You know, Rajiv Malhotra has written, Dr. Aryaji, you would know Rajiv Malhotra has written wonderfully on some of these T.S. Eliot and these writers. Yeah? So I end there with that plea. Universities, okay, we have studied Ved for quite long. I don't know how much more we can get from commentaries. Let's apply it now. Take it and apply the knowledge, Ved and Shastras, to empower Pracharaks, ordinary Pracharaks. All of us are Pracharaks. Empower Pracharaks with a book and with some knowledge, how to go out and teach this great knowledge. So to that end, I want to tell you my little project in the Caribbean Examinations Council. They give religious education and children write the exam. They have to study all the religions in the Caribbean and they can choose one to specialize. Hinduism is a specialty they can choose. I am the content specialist for the examination in that area. So I am working towards a book because we don't have a book. When the Christians take up the Bible, they have a Bible, one book, and the Muslim have the Quran, and they're getting everything in there for their exam. And we have little. When we're talking of avatar and absolute and avatar, unmanifested and manifested, and so on. We have to give them verses that they can quote from Veda and Shastra as well. Avatar would come from the Puranic tradition, but as far as possible, we can have from the Veda verses that we can use. So I'm asking you all to join with me. I'll send you that outline of the project, whatever way you guys can fit in, to send a little paragraph or so, 2 paragraphs, not much writing, is 10th grade, 10th level students. So not too hard. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you for this wonderful, bringing this Sabha alive in these times of COVID-19. Om Namaste.
थैंक यू इंद्रानी जी। हमने देखा कि इनके मन में कितनी पीड़ा थी भारतीय संस्कृति और भारतीय सभ्यता के प्रति, और जो आज विश्व के अंदर हालात हैं। आपने बताया कि जो महर्षि दयानंद का जो सत्यार्थ प्रकाश हुआ, ये जो 13वां चैप्टर है, 13वां जो समुल्लास है, इस समुल्लास के माध्यम से उस समय भी महर्षि दयानंद ने क्रिश्चियनिटी में कन्वर्सन को रोका, और अगर इसका प्रचार प्रसार किया जाए तो आज भी कन्वर्सन रुक सकते हैं। ये जो मुस्लिम धर्म में कन्वर्सन है, क्रिश्चियनिटी में कन्वर्सन है, ये इनके लिए एक व्यापक बहुत बड़ा हथियार है। परंतु दुख की बात यह है कि आर्य समाज के लोग अब इन 4 जो ये चैप्टर्स हैं इन पे काम नहीं करना चाहते। उन्होंने एक ढंग से इनको बंद कर दिया है। और आपने यह भी बताया कि महर्षि दयानंद ने जो वैदिक विचारधारा थी, प्राचीन जो वैदिक विचारधारा थी, उसको नए परिदृश्य में, एक नए पैकेज में रखा, और आज आवश्यकता है कि इसी सत्यार्थ प्रकाश को भी आज के परिदृश्य में एक नए पैकेज में रखा जाए। और आपने बताया कि जो ईसाइयत का जो सृष्टि विषय का विचार था, महर्षि दयानंद ने उसका बहुत अच्छे से खंडन किया, और इस पे मैं भी बात करूंगा अगले लेक्चर में। और इन्होंने कहा, इनकी पीड़ा थी कि भारत, हम चिल्लाते हैं, नारा देते हैं कि मेरा भारत महान, परंतु यह भारत महान तब रहेगा तब इसमें कोई उस महानता की संस्कृति का पोषक बचेगा। और आज जिस प्रकार से जो दौरा चल रहा है, उसमें लगता नहीं कि भारत की ये जो संस्कृति है कुछ अगले वर्षों में बच पाएगी। आपने बताया कि भारत में जितने इन्वेडर्स आए, जितने आक्रमणकारी आए, उन सबके स्मृति चिन्ह हैं। आप दिल्ली में जाएंगे तो आप देखेंगे, लोधियों ने आक्रमण किया तो लोधी रोड भी वही है। तो मैं सबके नाम नहीं ले रहा, क्योंकि मैं संक्षेप में इसका हिंदी में आपको बताना चाहता हूं। तो जितने आक्रमणकारी आए उन सब के स्मारक भारत के अंदर है, दिल्ली में है, आपको यह दिखाने के लिए कि ये आपके आका हैं और आपको इनके गुलाम बन के रहना है, और आपका भविष्य भी इसी गुलामी में, वैचारिक, अब राजनैतिक गुलामी नहीं है, अब वैचारिक गुलामी का समय आ गया है। आपने यह भी बताया कि जो 18वीं शताब्दी में जो भारत के संदर्भ में भारतीय विद्याओं का अध्ययन 17वीं शताब्दी में यूरोप में प्रारंभ हुआ। और किस लिए प्रारंभ हुआ? वो यूरोप के लोग देखना चाहते थे कि ये भारत के लोग क्या पढ़ते हैं, इनके सिद्धांत क्या हैं, इनके नियम क्या हैं। तो उन लोगों को, उनको पढ़ने के लिए भारत विद्याओं का प्रारंभ हुआ। और क्योंकि जब तक किसी देश का सही ज्ञान न हो, उनके लोगों की संस्कृति, उन लोगों के नियमों का ज्ञान न हो, तब तक आप किसी देश पर शासन नहीं कर सकते हैं। तो उसके बाद वो उन्होंने भारत में प्रवेश किया, और विलियम जोन्स जैसे लोगों ने, विलियम जोन्स का काम क्या था कि भारतीय जो लॉ था, भारतीय जो कानून था, उस समय की जो व्यवस्था थी, उसको इंटरप्रेट करते थे, उनको बताते थे अंग्रेजों में कि ये इनका संविधान है, ये इनके विधान है। और परंतु धीरे धीरे उसने भारतीय विद्याओं के उस पे भी अध्ययन प्रारंभ किया। और उसके बाद 1835 तक आते आते मैकॉले ने हमें ये समझाया कि हमारा जो साहित्य है, जो हमारी संस्कृति है, जो हमारी शिक्षा है, उसका कोई महत्व नहीं है। पूरे भारत का जो साहित्य है, वो पूरा का पूरा साहित्य ऑक्सफोर्ड विश्वविद्यालय की जो एक सेल्फ है, उसका एक जो उस सेल्फ में एक जो सेल्फ है, उस पूरी अलमारी का जो एक सेल्फ है, उसमें रखी हुई पुस्तकों से भी ज्यादा महत्वपूर्ण नहीं है। तो धीरे धीरे हमें ये बताया जा रहा था कि हम कुछ जानते नहीं, हमारे साहित्य का कोई महत्व नहीं। और इसी श्रेणी में हम आगे बढ़ते हैं तो जर्मन स्कॉलर्स आए, कितने वेस्टर्न स्कॉलर्स आए, उन्होंने भारतीय विद्याओं का अध्ययन किया। परंतु जो उस समय विद्याओं का, भारतीय विद्याओं का अध्ययन हो रहा था, केवल इसी माध्यम, इसी उद्देश्य के लिए हो रहा था कि इस पूरे भारतवर्ष को क्रिश्चियनाइज कर दिया जाए। और मैं आपको बताना चाहता, अगर महर्षि दयानंद न होते तो आज हम में से एक भी हिंदू या वैदिक धर्मी नहीं बचता, सब लोग क्रिश्चियन होते। और मैक्स मुलर तो लिखता है, मैक्स मुलर लिखते हैं कि ये जो मेरा वेद भाष्य और ये सब ट्रांसलेशंस हैं, ये आगे चल करके ब्रिटिश साम्राज्य के लिए भारत में जो ईसाइयत का रास्ता है उसको सरल बना देगा। तो आपको इस ढंग से हमें हमारे साहित्य को प्रस्तुत किया जा रहा था कि हम सब लोग अपने आप में हीन भावना रखें, और उन लोगों में एक सुपीरियोरिटी कॉम्प्लेक्स वो बना रहे थे, अपना पैदा कर रहे थे कि हम सुपीरियर रेस हैं, ताकि जो इंफीरियर भारतीय हैं वो सुपीरियर लोगों का अनुकरण करें। परंतु बड़ी महत्व की बात है, जब महर्षि दयानंद ने सत्यार्थ प्रकाश लिखा तो पूरी क्रिश्चियनिटी की सुपीरियरिटी को धराशायी कर दिया 13वें समोल्लास ने, पूरे मुस्लिम जगत की सुपीरियरिटी को धराशायी कर दिया 14वें समोल्लास में। और जो जो भारत की वीकनेस थी, जो भारत के धर्मों में, संप्रदायों में जो कमी थी, जिसको हाईलाइट करके यूरोप के लोग, क्रिश्चियंस लोग, इस्लाम के लोग भारतीयों का इस्लामीकरण, भारतीयों का ईसाईकरण कर रहे थे, महर्षि दयानंद ने उसको एकदम फुल स्टॉप लगा दिया। क्रिश्चियन इतिहासकार लिखता है, ब्रिटिश हिस्टोरियन लिखता है कि ये जो दयानंद है ये दो काम कर रहा है, अपने धर्म को प्यूरिफाई कर रहा है और इन दोनों धर्मों को, इनकी सुपीरियरिटी को समाप्त कर रहा है, ताकि भारतीय फिर एक बार जागृत हों, अवेकनिंग आए। और हम देखते हैं जो भारत की आज़ादी में भाग लेने वाले जो 80% लोग हैं, उनमें से आर्य समाज की विचारधारा से प्रभावित लोग 80%। और इस प्रकार का एक सिस्टम उत्पन्न कर दिया, एक ऐसी व्यवस्था और एक माहौल, वातावरण उत्पन्न किया महर्षि दयानंद ने कि जो उस समय लोग उत्पन्न हो रहे थे, जो महर्षि दयानंद का अनुकरण कर रहे थे, उनकी सत्य निष्ठा को विदेशी भी स्वीकार करते थे। लाहौर में अनेक जजों ने अनेक निर्णयों में ये निर्णय दिया कि इसका विटनेस, इसका गवाह एक आर्य समाजी है और आर्य समाजी झूठ नहीं बोल सकता। तो इस प्रकार का प्रभाव जो भारत की संस्कृति को जितने हीन भाव से वहां पर उपस्थित कर दिया गया था, उसको उतने ही एक विस्तृत रूप में महर्षि दयानंद पूरे विश्व के समक्ष रख रहे थे। तो आपने ये भी बताया कि धीरे धीरे जब ब्रिटिश भाषाओं का यहाँ पर प्रारंभ हुआ, भारतीय विद्या का, इंडोलॉजी का अध्ययन प्रारंभ हुआ, तो तब प्राग भारोपीय भाषाएं, इंडो यूरोपियन लैंग्वेज, और उससे पहले प्रोटो इंडो यूरोपियन लैंग्वेज की भी बात की जाने लगी। और जो संस्कृत की सुपीरियोरिटी था उसको धराशायी कर दिया गया और कहा कि संस्कृत, लैटिन, ग्लाव, स्लाव, ग्रीक इत्यादि भाषाएं किसी प्राग भारोपीय, एक प्रोटो इंडो यूरोपियन भाषा से उत्पन्न हुई, और ये मदर लैंग्वेज नहीं है सिस्टर, ये सभी सिस्टर लैंग्वेजेज हैं। ये एक समकक्ष भाषाएं हैं, लैटिन, संस्कृत और गॉथिक, स्लाव भाषाएं, ये समकक्ष भाषाएं हैं, संस्कृत मदर लैंग्वेज नहीं है। इस प्रकार से हम देखते पूरा अपरूट जड़ से हमें समाप्त किया जा रहा था धीरे धीरे। और एक बहुत अच्छी नई बात यूरोप के लोगों ने हमें दी, जर्मन के लोगों ने हमें दी। कहा कि आर्य बाहर से आए हैं, और भारत में आर्य और द्रविड़ के नाम से विभाजन उत्पन्न कर दिया गया कि ये लोग लड़ेंगे। और उसके बाद उसी प्रकार से यहाँ जातीयगत विभाजन भी पैदा किया गया, उसका बहुत प्रचार प्रसार किया गया, यद्यपि वो उस ढंग से प्रिवेलेंट नहीं था जिस प्रकार से यहाँ पर उसका प्रचार हुआ यूरोप के माध्यम से, ब्रिटिश शासकों के माध्यम से। और आपने यह भी पीड़ा व्यक्त की कि इनको बहुत दुख हुआ जब ये 19 वर्ष की ये नाम सुनकर के बनारस हिंदू विश्वविद्यालय में आई और इन्होंने देखा कि वहाँ संस्कृत की कोई पढ़ाई नहीं है। अगर कोई जर्मन में जाता है उसके लिए जर्मन सीखना आवश्यक है जर्मन के विश्वविद्यालय में पढ़ने के लिए, परंतु वाह रे भारतवर्ष, आज भी इतनी आज़ादी के 70-75 वर्ष हम मना रहे हैं, हम जश्न मनाते हैं, परंतु जब यहाँ पर कोई विद्यार्थी पढ़ता है, विदेश से पढ़ने के लिए आता है, या यहाँ के जब लोग पढ़ते हैं, तो कोई अनिवार्यता नहीं कि आप संस्कृत का एक छोटा सा 3 मास का भी कोर्स करें, ऐसा कोई विधान और प्रावधान इस देश के अंदर नहीं है। ये सब जो चीजें ये दिखाती हैं कि हम कितने थोते हैं, हमारा जो हम अपने गौरव की बात करते हैं वह कितना झूठा और घटिया हमारा आचरण और इतिहास है। जो हम कहते हैं उसको हम ट्रांसलेट नहीं कर सकते, उसको हम क्रियान्वित नहीं कर सकते। आपने यह भी बताया कि किस प्रकार से 18वीं 19वीं शताब्दी में उन ब्राह्मणों को कन्वर्ट किया गया अंग्रेजों के द्वारा जो कि इस देश की दिशा और दशा को निर्धारित करते थे। आपने एक कृष्ण मोहन बैनर्जी का उदाहरण दिया जो कि ईसाई भी बना, उसने अपनी पत्नी और पुत्र को भी ईसाई बनाया और बंगाल क्रिश्चियन एसोसिएशन का पहला प्रेसिडेंट भी बना। और ऐसे लोग, और इन लोगों ने स्वयं भारत के लोगों की वीकनेस भी कहा थी, वो जो उन्हीं का जो इलीट वर्ग था उन्होंने उस वीकनेस को उत्पन्न किया और उसी वीकनेस का प्रचार कर करके भारत की गरिमा को, भारत के लोगों को ये बताने का प्रयत्न किया कि आपका कोई महत्व नहीं है। यदि आप विकसित होना चाहते हैं, यदि आप आगे बढ़ना चाहते हैं, यदि आपको अंग्रेज यूरोप के साइंस को पढ़ना है, तो आपको ईसाई बनना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि ईसाइयत का जब चश्मा आप पहन लेंगे तो आपको विज्ञान समझ में आएगा। और उससे पहले बाइबल का विज्ञान हम सब जानते हैं, और महर्षि दयानंद का ये 13वां अध्याय बताता है कि उनके पास कैसा विज्ञान था। परंतु हमें समझा रहे हैं कि जब ईसाइयत का आप चश्मा पहन लेंगे तब आप यूरोप के विज्ञान को समझने लगेंगे। तो ये सब चीजें, और ये भी सच्चिदानंद जैसे लोगों का आपने नाम लिया, उन्होंने ये भी बताया कि बाइबल में जो बातें हैं वो सब वेद की बातें हैं, और जो ईसा मसीह का जो क्रूसिफिक्शन था वो जो पुरुष मेध हुआ प्रजापति परमेष्ठी का, वही तो था, यही बाइबल, यही तो पुरुष मेध यहाँ हो रहा है। और वो वेद का जो साक्षात उदाहरण तो ईसा मसीह है। तो ये बताया जा रहा था कि किस, और यही नहीं, उस चकाचौंध से ईश्वर चंद्र विद्यासागर और केशव चंद्र शील सब अंग्रेजी अध्ययन की पुष्टि कर रहे थे, उसका समर्थन कर रहे थे और ईसाइयत को बढ़ावा दे रहे थे। और इवन के बनारस के बहुत बड़े पंडित जिन्होंने महर्षि दयानंद से शास्त्रार्थ किया, वो भी अंग्रेजों का स्तुति गान कर रहे थे, उनका धन्यवाद कर रहे थे, उनके लिए थालियों से उनकी पूजा कर रहे थे कि आप हमारे देश में आए हैं, हमारा सौभाग्य। इस प्रकार की व्यवस्था, इस प्रकार के पढ़े लिखे लोग, और ये माध्यम अकेला महर्षि दयानंद उस समय था भारत के इतिहास में जिसने सही दर्शन दिग्दर्शन दिया, पूरा विश्व के साथ लड़ा, अंग्रेजों के साथ युद्ध किया, वैचारिक संघर्ष किया, भारतीय जो कुरीतियां थी, भारत के जो तथाकथित विद्वान लोग जो अंधविश्वास में फंसे हुए थे उनके साथ संघर्ष किया, बैलगाड़ी घोड़ा गाठी में बैठ बैठकर जो पूरे देश का भ्रमण कर रहा था, ऐसा व्यक्ति उसने हमें एक सही रास्ता दिया। परंतु दुख की बात है कि उस उतने महत्वपूर्ण कार्य के लिए भी भारतीयों ने ही महर्षि दयानंद का विरोध किया। एक आलमगीर नाम का एक साधु था, उसने कानपुर में एक मुकदमा डाला महर्षि दयानंद पर और आर्य समाज पर, और कहा कि ये जो साधु है ये अंग्रेजी सरकार की गद्दारी कर रहा है, ट्रेचरी कर रहा है, इसे तो मृत्यु दंड मिलना चाहिए। और वहां का जो जज था पी हैरिसन, उसने कहा नहीं, ये काम नहीं कर रहा है, ये भारतीयों के लिए ऐसा रास्ता उत्पन्न कर रहा है ताकि वो अपने आप को समझ सकें और अपना भाग्य स्वयं बना सकें। और उन्होंने महर्षि दयानंद को उस मुकदमे से मुक्त किया। तो आप देखिए, वही गद्दार भारतीय जिनकी रगों में गद्दारी का खून दौड़ता था, जो पैसे पर कहीं भी अपने सर्वस्व को लुटाने के लिए तैयार थे, वो व्यक्ति महर्षि दयानंद का उस समय विरोध कर रहे थे। जबकि यूरोप की मनीषा समझ रही थी कि इसका कितना आंतरिक और कितना महान इसका दर्शन है, किस प्रकार से यह अपने लोगों को, अपने भारतीयों को एक भविष्य की दिशा देना चाहता है, परंतु भारतीय लोग उसको समझना नहीं चाहते थे। तो इस प्रकार से मैं, आपने वो बहुत बातें कही, मैं उनमें नहीं जाऊंगा। मैं इस वक्तृ का धन्यवाद करता हूँ। और इन्होंने बहुत से प्रश्न उठाए हैं और कहा कि इस प्रकार से हम कार्य कर सकते हैं, हमें इस प्रकार के प्रोग्राम चलाने होंगे, तो अवश्य ही हम इनके साथ, महर्षि दयानंद चेयर अवश्य ही इस प्रकार के कार्यों में जो दुनिया में लोग करना चाहेगा, हम उनका साथ देंगे और उसमें मिल करके काम करना चाहेंगे। इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ मैं पंडिता इंद्राणी राम प्रसाद का अत्यंत आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ कि आपने हमारे इस कार्यक्रम में भाग लिया और अपने जो हृदय की पीड़ा थी उसको अपने माध्यम से आपने अपने तरीके से ही व्यक्त किया। धन्यवाद।